Ever wonder where Halloween really comes from? Why we carve pumpkins, dress up in costumes, and hand out candy to trick-or-treaters? It all started over 2,000 years ago with a spooky Celtic festival. Let's dive into the fascinating and somewhat eerie history of Halloween. It all begins with the ancient Celts, who lived in what is now Ireland, the UK, and northern France. For them, November 1st marked the start of their new year, and October 31st was the night before, a significant liminal time that straddled the boundary between the warmth and light of summer and the cold, dark days of winter. On this day, they organized a festival called Samhain, and they believed that on this night, the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead was at its thinnest. They believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to the world of the living. These spirits were thought to cause trouble, damaging crops, haunting people, or even possessing the living. However, they were also seen as a source of guidance, as the spirits of ancestors could offer advice for the difficult winter months ahead. To ward off the unwanted spirits and ensure a good harvest for the coming year, the Celts performed various rituals and lit sacred bonfires. People gathered to burn crops and animals as offerings to their gods. The fire was also believed to bring protection for the harsh winter ahead. But that wasn't all. They even wore costumes, often made of animal skins and heads, to disguise themselves and confuse any malevolent spirits. This is one of the earliest known instances of what would later evolve into the tradition of wearing Halloween costumes. These disguises were worn to prevent spirits from recognizing or harming the living. This tradition of costumes persisted and evolved over time, especially as Halloween moved away from its spiritual roots and became more of a celebration of the supernatural and the spooky. Fast forward to the 8th century, and Christianity starts blending into the mix. Pope Gregory III declared November 1st as All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows' Day, which was a day to honor saints and martyrs. This wasn't a random date. It was chosen to coincide with Samhain, hoping to replace the pagan festival with a Christian holiday. October 31st became known as All Hallows' Eve, which over time morphed into, you guessed it, Halloween. But some of those pagan traditions stuck around, evolving in interesting ways. For example, people started going door to door, asking for food or money in exchange for prayers for the souls of the dead. Sound a bit like trick-or-treating? It wasn't candy they were after back then. It was something called soul cakes. This practice, known as souling, laid the foundation for one of Halloween's most beloved traditions today. And what about pumpkins? Well, that started out as something entirely different. In Ireland and Scotland, people carved turnips and potatoes into lanterns to scare away evil spirits. But when Irish immigrants came to America in the 19th century, they discovered something new: pumpkins. They were bigger, easier to carve, and let's face it, way more fun. And that's how the jack-o'-lantern tradition was born. The mass Irish and Scottish immigration to the United States during the 19th century brought Halloween to North America, and by the early 20th century, Halloween started to take on the form we recognize today. The focus shifted from spiritual rituals to a more community-oriented holiday. The mischief and pranks that once came with the holiday began to shift into more organized fun. By the 1920s and 1930s, it had turned into a full-blown community celebration with parties, parades, and trick-or-treating. Children, dressed up in costumes, would go door to door saying trick or treat, and neighbors handed out candy to avoid getting tricked. By the 1950s, Halloween had become a holiday mainly for children. The post-war baby boom created a demand for family-friendly celebrations, and Halloween fit the bill perfectly. The tradition of wearing costumes expanded beyond ghosts and spirits to include a wide range of characters, and mass-produced costumes and candy became a staple of the holiday. Today, Halloween is celebrated worldwide, particularly in countries with strong Anglo-American influences, such as Canada, the UK, Australia, and Ireland, though other countries also have their own versions of the festival. In Mexico, for example, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, celebrated from October 31st to November 2nd, overlaps with Halloween, but emphasizes honoring deceased family members in a more spiritual and familial context. In the end, Halloween's all about spooky fun, creative costumes, haunted houses, and of course, candy. But behind all the fun lies a history that stretches back thousands of years, blending pagan traditions, Christian holidays, and modern festivities into one spooky celebration. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the origins of Halloween, hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating history stories. Stay spooky and have a hauntingly good Halloween.